Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And on this segment of the show, I have a family law attorney, Mike Toburen of Toburen Law PLC. And Mike's calling in all the way from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mike has a wealth of experience in the area of family law, and we'll be talking to you today about the very interesting topic of protecting yourself and your family during divorce. So, if you are a divorcing couple, I highly recommend you down tools, stop whatever you're doing, log out of Facebook, whatever the case may be, and have a listen in to what Mike has to share with us today. So with that said, let's not keep him waiting any longer. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So, Mike, let's just make the best use of the time that we have together here today. Can you firstly briefly describe the kinds of people who you serve and the various types of situations that they find themselves in when they come to you for your help?
Certainly, and anyone facing a divorce, whether a complaint for divorce has yet been filed or maybe that complaint for divorce is imminent and coming down the road, or anyone who is already divorced and is maybe struggling with now an ex-spouse who is not complying with the terms of a judgment of divorce. So those are the two main categories when we're talking divorce and the law that my clients would fall into. And a lot of times I will meet with a client well in advance of the divorce actually starting because they have questions about what that process will look like, how much will it cost, what will be the impact on myself and my children. And then, as I mentioned, the second category would be post-divorce and people who are now divorced but are still struggling because that relationship has obviously changed and maybe one of the two parties has just refused to comply with what the court has ordered.
Okay then, Mike, so keeping those kinds of people that you've just described in mind, can you share with us, and of course anything that you share with us today is not legal advice or legal assistance, so that has to be said first and foremost, but can you briefly share with us one of the most common misconceptions when it comes to protecting yourself and your family throughout the divorce procedure?
Certainly, and I think without a doubt the biggest misconception is that every issue related to divorce or really any family law issue, that those issues do not all have to be decided by a judge. And in fact, the law has several steps in the divorce process that help people hopefully resolve some of those issues on their own. And one example would be most courts in Michigan will require parties to a divorce to go through mediation, which is the process of meeting with a neutral third party who understands the law surrounding divorce and custody and property division, who can meet with the parties, sometimes with their attorneys present and sometimes without their attorneys present, with the hopes that some of the issues can be resolved without having to go in front of a judge and kind of battling over those issues.
So, Mike, could you share with us an example of how you've helped someone who came to you with those challenges, with those misconceptions that you just described, and what kind of transformational results you were able to gain for them? And obviously, do keep your client's confidentiality in mind, but if you could just do that for us, that would be great. Thank you.
Certainly, I think one of the big challenges in a divorce is the emotional part of it. And obviously, it's a life-changing event. And sometimes one of the two spouses wants the divorce and the other doesn't. Sometimes they both realize that the marriage has ended and it's time to go through that process. But either way, it's a very emotional process, as you can imagine. So number one is helping my client understand that this is a life-changing event and it's time to focus on taking care of themselves, taking care of their children. And that's especially difficult for the spouse who really does not want the divorce to happen, and getting them to understand that if the other party does want it to happen, there is really no way to stop it. So how do we take that and turn it into the best possible result for husband, for wife, and for the children? So sometimes getting the client to engage in the process is one of the first and most important steps in the divorce process. And then beyond that is getting them to realize that, especially when you're talking about children and custody and parenting time, the courts and the judge will always focus on what is best for the children, not necessarily what is best for the parents. So the parenting time decision, which parent will have the children during the week, which parent will maybe only have weekend parenting time, how will the holiday parenting time work out? If that issue does go before a judge, it's based on, again, what is best for the children and not necessarily what is best for the parents. So part of my job is helping my client understand that. And as you get into negotiating and possibly presenting an argument to a judge, is making sure the focus, again, is on what is best for the children. And then part of that also as well is making sure that the client understands that the children really don't need to know all or any of the details of what is going on between the two parents as they go through the divorce process. And quite honestly, that will usually work against a parent who does try to drag the children into the middle of the divorce. The children really only need to know that, yes, mom and dad are getting divorced. Mom and dad still love you, and you as the children are not the cause of this divorce.
Moving on, Mike, today's topic is protecting oneself and one's family during divorce. So with that in mind, and for those divorcing couples wanting to know more, and I'm sure there are plenty of pitfalls out there, but could you just share the most common pitfall that you come across on a regular basis that you would like those divorcing couples who are listening to you right now today to be aware of? Thank you. Just briefly.
The biggest pitfall is not every issue is going to be a who wins and who loses issue. In terms of property separation, as a starting point, any property that the couple owned as a married couple will be divided 50-50. There could be a few exceptions to that, but for the most part, you're going to start by splitting the property down the middle. Parenting time, we talked about a little bit, but along the same lines, it's not a matter of I want to win and I want my soon-to-be ex-spouse to lose. It's looking at what is going to be best for our children so they can move on with their lives as well. What we find a lot of times, a lot of these issues end up being resolved somewhat down the middle.
Okay, Mike. So in my introduction to the show, I shared with the listeners that you have a wealth of experience in the area of family law, and that's become quite evident as you've been sharing your insights today. So with that said then, Mike, could you briefly just tell us a little bit about yourself, and especially in terms of your background, your education, and your experience as it relates to the topic of family law?
I focus my practice on family law and also estate planning. So that by narrowing the focus of my practice, I've been able to become an expert in a limited number of practice areas. I've been practicing for almost 4 years. One thing that's maybe unique about my practice is that the law is a second career for me. So I had a number of years of experience working in another field before law school, and I think that has really helped me relate to clients who bring a number of different backgrounds and being able to, I think, relate to different people with different beliefs, possibly from different cultures as well.
With that said then, Mike, I'd like you to just picture in your mind's eye the kinds of people who come to you, those divorcing couples who want to know more. They come to you for your help. They want to know more about protecting themselves and their families throughout the divorce procedure. Now, with that picture in mind then, Mike, what final thoughts would you like to leave them with before we move on to our last question, where we're just going to find out how they can connect with you? Please go ahead.
Number one, as I mentioned before, is if you have minor children, make sure that you really focus on what is best for your children. And as a part of that is try, as difficult as it may be, to keep your children out of the discussion of who is to blame or what caused this divorce. That would be number one. Number two is to make sure that as the divorce kind of works its way through the process, that you comply with any court order. There may be a number of orders that go into place during the pendency of the divorce, and making sure that those are complied with will really help as the process moves towards a final judgment of divorce.
So, Mike, if there's somebody out there who wants to know more about how to protect themselves and their family throughout the divorce procedure, how would they connect with you? How would they find you, Mike?
I'm available by phone at 616-425-9212. I also have a website where clients can contact me directly through email. My website is my last name, toburenlaw.com. Either one of those will get a client or potential client directly in contact with my office.
Okay, so whether you're sat in heavy traffic or you're tuning in from home, maybe listening on your cell phone, tablet, or any other kind of personal listening device, that's all we have time for today. Once more, that was Mike Toburen. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us today. You certainly have demonstrated that you're a true educator and advocate for your client's success, Mike. So thank you.
And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. And I'd also like to say an even bigger thank you to you, the listener, for joining us on this very insightful and informative discussion. We are limited by time, but Mike has packed in a whole lot of great insights that you can use. So thank you for joining in on this discussion with what I would consider one of the leading family law attorneys in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area today. So make sure you do check him out, give him a call, drop him an email. You're certainly going to be in good hands. So again, I'm Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more leading divorce professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So, until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.